Welcome back, friends and family. It's time for another episode of the podcast. Let's start with good news. I found an article on CNN this week by Ellie Torgan titled "From Rock Superstar to All-Star Dishwasher, Jon Bon Jovi is Keeping His Community Fed." It was a pretty cool article. It talked about the JBJ Soul Kitchen, which is the non-profit community restaurant run by Jon Bon Jovi's charitable organization, the JBJ Soul Foundation. The article talked about how they were staying open, working to feed the communities they serve throughout the pandemic. It had a picture of Jon Bon Jovi in the back, in the kitchen, washing dishes. And that got me to doing some more research on both the kitchen and the foundation. And they seem pretty cool. The kitchen, it looks like there's two locations, one in Red Bank, New Jersey, and one in Toms River, New Jersey. The setup, so far as I can tell, is a real kind of sit-down restaurant thing. But there's no set price for the meal. People can come in. There's a suggested donation. It looked like a donation of $20. And that would cover your meal and help provide meals to others who can't afford meals. It seemed like they were really focused on serving people who needed food, to pushing back against hunger in those communities, but in a way that was very dignified. I think things like soup kitchens and those sort of low-income meal situations, those are so important everywhere. But I really did like the way the JBJ Soul Kitchen had it set up like a traditional restaurant. And it seemed like it would be a place that would be cool for anyone to go eat, to contribute, and also just really present it in a way where there was no shame to go in there, have a meal, use the services when you needed them. And if you were able to donate and help out to make sure that the community was fed. And what a powerful thing that. It makes me think of my Grandma True, my maternal grandmother, who was a woman who just always had food in the kitchen. I mean, always. And she had, to be fair, 14 children and brought in 10 foster kids at different times, and they always had people staying at the house. Anyone who needed something, who needed a hand, who needed a meal, the door was open. And the research I did on the JBJ Soul Kitchen reminded me of that, of the power of feeding people, of how much of a communal thing that is. So I thought that was great. The Soul Foundation itself, the larger parent charitable organization, is focused on pushing back against hunger, poverty, and homelessness in New Jersey. They work through programs and grants to fight those things. The website is jbjsf.org if anybody wants to check that out. And if anybody's in the Red Bank or Toms River, New Jersey area, I think it would be cool to check out the JBJ Soul Kitchen. So great thing going on there from Jon Bon Jovi. He seems like a pretty cool guy. It's always hard to tell with anybody who's in the public eye We don't see them personally, but that's definitely something pretty cool that he's been doing. So that's our good news for this week. If any of you, listeners, viewers, have any of your own good news, local stuff, personal stuff that you would like to share, please contact. We'll share the contact stuff at the end of the episode again, but it would be fun to start sharing some personal good news at the start of the show as well. Next, we're talking about what's on my mind, specifically the blog post for this week is entitled A Real Cool Hand. And that's a reference to the classic 1967 Paul Newman movie, Cool Hand Luke. Cool Hand Luke is one of my favorite movies. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. It was a movie I had a connection to even before I had ever seen it. My name is Luke, obviously, and as a product of the 1980s, I grew up pretty regularly hearing people say, "Luke, I am your father," in reference to Star Wars. That's not even exactly how the line goes in Empire Strikes Back, but if your name is Luke and you grew up when I did, you got that a lot. The Cool Hand Luke thing came in because my grandfather would sometimes call me Cool Hand Luke. That's a pretty solid handle, even not knowing the movie. It sounds cool. And it was nice having my name associated with some other cultural reference than Star Wars. I love Star Wars, but the Luke Skywalker connection got a little tired and overplayed. So I liked that. I had an affinity for the movie before I ever saw it. When I did see the movie as an adult, I immediately connected with it. I connected with a number of the themes in the film. First, Lucas Jackson, the title character, Paul Newman's character, struggles to go with the flow, to fit in. The movie, for those who haven't seen it, follows Lucas Jackson and his time in a rural southern prison camp. He goes to the prison camp for cutting the heads off of parking meters. The very first thing in the movie is he's walking around with a big pipe cutter cutting the heads off of these parking meters. Just sort of for the anarchy of it, I suppose. He goes to this prison camp, and you get the impression that he's just always kind of been that way. Always bucked the system, always pushed back, couldn't really find comfort in a normal life, what we consider a normal life. And that continues at the prison camp. From the jump, he's having run-ins with the prison guards, with the other inmates, with the warden. There's so many scenes in the movie where he could have just gotten along fine if he'd have just went along. If he would have just not rocked the boat. But there was an impulse in him that just couldn't help himself or wouldn't submit to what other people wanted him to do. And I get that to a point. I don't intend to go around vandalizing parking meters. I don't want to go to prison. But I get that itch to just want to do things your own way. I I've always kind of been like that. Even when I was really young, I've always been one of those kids who had to learn things the hard way. Even when I felt advice was given to me with the best intentions, I was just bullheaded enough, I suppose I still am, to want to try and figure it out on my own and see what happens. I especially remember with my mom when I was in middle school and high school. Wow, we butted heads constantly because I was pretty independent and thought I could be really independent. I wanted to do things on my own, and I would be one of those kids I would talk back and argue whatever point I didn't 100% agree with. And feel a little bad about it now. My mom and I have a great relationship now, but I just would push back against everything to the point where my younger brothers would even kind of plead with me to just stop arguing, just be done. Like, you're only making it worse. But I just wouldn't. I just felt compelled to get in the last word and try to prove my point no matter the consequences. Even when I was in the middle of it and realized this is not going well, I'm going to ride it out to the very end. And I think that's something that has been challenging for me in different relationships throughout my life as well, because I've just got the impulse to push back against things a little bit, to not necessarily go with the flow. Even sometimes in silly ways, like where a TV show or something will be popular and I'll resist watching it for a long time because it's popular, because everybody seems to be watching it. I've learned as I've gotten older, some things are popular because they're good. And I circle back around to be like, all right, I get the appeal of this thing, but there's just something about wanting to cut my own path, to be self-reliant, and I suppose there's kind of a fear of getting wrapped up in the ordinary, of just falling into the inertia of life and not really living it to its fullest. I think that's, for me, one of the big motivators is that fear that I'm not being 100% myself or doing 100% what feels true to me. Even if I'm not, that doesn't mean if we go with the flow, we're lying about who we are or anything like that. I think I have that impulse, that what I think is an understanding that life is very short, that we better do exactly what we want to do and be exactly who we want to be. And sometimes that goes too far into pushing back against things for no real reason other than just not wanting to conform. So I see that in Cool Hand Luke. There's also some things that I connect with where Luke really finds his place amongst the inmates after he has a run-in with the guy who's kind of the head of the inmates. He's the clear leader of the inmates, big, strong guy, seemingly been there a while, well-respected. And they have a run-in, and they have a fight out in the yard, and the other inmate beats the tar out of him. Luke is getting destroyed, but he won't stay down. He keeps getting back up. He gets knocked back down. He gets back up again. To the point where finally the other inmate sort of takes pity on him. The fight ends with him picking up this exhausted Lucas Jackson and carrying him back into the bunks. But Luke earned everybody's respect in that, especially that other inmate. And they become best friends. I identify with that too. There's something powerful about just not giving up. Not giving in, no matter the odds, no matter how hard something is. There's something to be said for just being willing to take a beating. And that doesn't necessarily mean a physical beating, but that willingness to take our lumps, to go through the pain and just not quit. That's something I find very admirable. I'm a big proponent of loving people and talking about social emotional needs, but I'm also a big proponent of toughness. Flat out, plain, gritty, dirty toughness. Of just the ability to endure and understand that's the way forward. So I connect with that too. And I also connect with Lucas Jackson's ability to sort of unseat things, to alter the environment around him. By going against the flow, he certainly upsets some people. He has his run-ins with the guards and the warden, but he also brightens the environment for the other inmates. He gets them racing while they're doing road work, and what was daunting physical labor becomes this exciting race where all the inmates are throwing gravel on the road and they're sprinting and hooping and hollering, and it becomes this fun thing. And he sets up a bet where he has to eat 50 hard-boiled eggs in this famous funny scene. But he does these things that go against the flow to change the environment around him. That's another admirable quality. So often we bend to the environment that's given to us, but we have to understand we can also, maybe more than any other creature in the world, we can change our environments. I like that too. And the last theme of the movie with which I identified is the idea that leads to the title of the movie. Cool Hand Luke. Luke is playing poker early on with the other inmates, and he bluffs his way to a win. When they reveal the cards that turn his hand over, they see that he had nothing. And Luke calmly says, "Sometimes nothing is a real cool hand." I love that. I love that line, but it's also very true. That's what got me thinking about my connections to the movie. I've definitely felt that. At my lowest points, where I felt like I had nothing, they were some of the most meaningful and important times of my life. And I've never really had nothing. It's important for me to say that because I've always had a supportive family. I've always had friends around. That's a lot more than some people ever have. And maybe more than I've deserved at times. So I've never really had nothing. But I've definitely had those times where it felt like I had nothing. Where I was at that low point, and it felt like I had lost too much. And I'm talking specifically about that period of my life where I was going through health problems and it led to a lot of life changes. And there were moments where I really didn't feel like going on, where I didn't feel like fighting anymore, where I knew I didn't want to continue living like that. And that felt like I had nothing in those moments. Or I at least focused on the things that I had lost, as opposed to the things that I had. But that hardship was clarifying. That sense of having nothing, or that sense of loss, helped to clear away a lot of the superficial things that so often fill our lives. When I was sick, when I was struggling, I was not worried about how I looked to other people. I wasn't worried about keeping up with the Joneses, about remodeling certain things on the house or buying a different car. I wasn't worried about any of those things. It cleared away so much in my life and left the things that were really important to me. My kids, my role as a teacher and a coach, my values, the things that I held dear, the things that I found purposeful and meaningful. That's what was left. And there's something really great about that, really powerful about that. To have those other things stripped away. In that way, I felt like nothing was a real cool hand. And it also helped me realize that I didn't have nothing. I had the most important things. I had the things that couldn't be taken away. I had my values and my beliefs, and it was important for me to feed those things. To me, that's what the movie Cool Hand Luke is all about. And there's probably, you could probably make arguments for a lot of different things that the movie's about, but to me, it's about freedom. And it's set in a prison, and Lucas Jackson tries to escape on numerous occasions. But to me, that's the theme. It's freedom. It's freedom from the burdens of going along with the lives presented to us, of getting wrapped up with that inertia of life, of finding who we truly are and not worrying about superficial things, because that is real freedom. So that's what I wrote about. That's the post for this week. That's a movie I really love. If you've never seen it, again, I highly recommend it. But that's a good reminder that sometimes nothing is a real cool hand. And now, a word from our sponsor. This week's show is brought to you by penguins, nature's best dressed flightless bird. And now from me to you. I just got done rambling on about the movie Cool Hand Luke and how I felt connections to it. But the takeaway that I want everyone to have is you never have nothing. Even when it seems like that's the case. And I know it can seem that way sometimes. I've had so many students, people in my life, even some people I don't know that well because of some of these things that I do, talk about their low points where they felt like there was no way out, that there were no options, there was no place to turn. And like I said, there were times in those challenging moments for me that I wasn't suicidal, and I only make a point to say that, not that I think, oh, I would never do that, or I'm too tough for that. It's not that at all. I just clarify that out of respect for those people who are really struggling, who have maybe mental health issues, and who get to that dark place where they do attempt suicide or contemplate it deeply. And again, I've had those interactions with people, and that's terrifying. So I've not been to that place, and I only say it out of respect for those who have. But I really, truly had that sense that I either hope that my health would improve or that it would kill me. That I had a fear about how long I could really endure it and whether I was strong enough. And I felt bad about not being what I thought was 100% for my kids and my students and for all the people I care about in my life. And I thought, I don't know how this ends, but I know I don't want to live like this for very long. And I wound up really, and it wasn't all dark, but there were a lot of ups and downs for about 4 years. And I hope people know that. If they take anything away from it, is it might seem like you've got nothing, but that's not the case. We never have nothing. At the very least, we have who we are. You have yourself, and that's an important thing. That's a special thing. There is only one you in all of existence, of all time. Only one person who has your thoughts and feelings and ideas, and that is important and significant and special. You have that, even when it seems like you have nothing else. And I believe you have more than that too. I was lucky, like I said, to have people in my life who I cared about, who cared about me. And I know some people who don't have the family structure that I've had my whole life, who don't have the friend group that I've had. But somebody out there cares. Even if you think no one does, someone out there cares. Even maybe somebody you don't know that well, even somebody you haven't met. Somebody cares. And somebody is out there who's willing to help and extend a hand. So that's it from me to you this week. Just remember, you don't have nothing. That's it for the show this week. We're going to start getting some guest hosts to join me. We're going to work on bringing in some of the interviews when that works into the schedule. That's one of the harder things to schedule, really around my teaching, coaching, parenting schedule. But keep doing some of that. And like I said last episode, I recorded the first 2 episodes ahead of time. But I would love to hear from any of you. I'm not expecting a huge group of listeners, viewers. That's okay. That's, as I mentioned in the last episode, when having some of these other experiences and connections through things like doing some of this media stuff and the social emotional learning stuff and writing a book, getting some cool connections with people, having some opportunities to maybe do some stuff, and having some, I don't know if I'd really say pressure, but some expectation to do some marketing and things like that, really really zeroing in on like, well, what do I want from this? And I want people to think, and I want people to feel, and I want to try to impact people in some small and positive way. But that's why I want to make this a little more interactive. So if anybody has anything to share, please reach out, contact me through LukeNielsen.com, through Luke Nielsen Media on pretty much all of the socials. All of this stuff is posted on YouTube and Spotify and SoundCloud, anywhere you'd stream podcasts under Luke Nielsen Media. It's all kind of under that name, so hopefully pretty easy to find. You can email me at LukeNielsenMedia@gmail. Remember, last name spelling Nielsen. You can contact me through the socials. Luke@LukeNielsen.com, I think, is the email through the website. But I'll check all those. I would love to share other people's stories. And if you want to reach out and don't want your story shared, because I've gotten that a lot through our family time, social, emotional stuff, that's cool. Some people don't want to share it publicly. Just put that in there. You don't want that shared, but I'd love to share some other people's stories. If you've got a good news story that you want to share, local, something from your life. If you've got any thoughts on any of the things that we've talked about here, that would be great. Anything like that. If you've got a suggestion for somebody who should co-host or who I should interview, that's all appreciated. I hope everyone's doing well. Much love to everyone out there. Love yourself. Love other people. Love the fight. We'll see you around.